And now, the Sons of Liberty show on the CB Media Network.
Due to the graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink.
Now we find ourselves facing a tyranny that has been infused with new blood, and it is rapidly becoming an engorged, hard tyranny. And yes, I know you better-minded listeners picked up on that not-so-subtle metaphor. I used it on purpose because a hard tyranny serves one purpose and one purpose only, to screw its subjects. No force, no attitude, no emotion, no nation, no person can hold any modicum of power, much less utter dominion over a sovereign individual, except through the sanction that is given by that individual.
But for me, leading a worldwide depression.
In doing so, we will honor the vows of our founders, who in the Declaration of Independence said that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This legislation will lead to healthier lives, more liberty to pursue hope and dreams and happiness.
Federal government, yes, can and do most anything in this country.
Just who the hell do you think you people are?
There's your dichotomy, folks. Do you want to be treated like children, or do you want to be treated like adults with brains of your own who can make your own decisions? That's the bottom line between new progressivism, which is really old communism, or conservatism, which is what started this great nation. Which hand are you going to choose?
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Yes, indeed. I am your Iron Man of classical liberal thought, Bradley Reese, wielding Occam's razor like a surgeon's scalpel to fillet red herrings, sever Gordian knots, and dissect progs to expose their filthy, steaming, putrescent, lie-filled guts for your amazement, amusement, bewilderment, and finally, hopefully, disgust, because we should all be nauseated at the slightest olfactory intrusion of the stench emanating from those troglodytes. During the course of the week prior, I have been dutifully stoking the fires of truth so as to reach optimal temperature to fry straw men to a crisp and melt down boilerplate to its bare essence, which is usually as dark as the pits of hell itself. So, welcome to the Sons of Liberty show, where the dissemination of information takes a backseat to nothing save the occasional foray into snark. And I would like to welcome my guest tonight, Dr. John Parnell. He is the William Henry Belk Chair of the Management School of Business Administration at the University of North Carolina, Pembroke campus, and also author of the blog site, battleforliberty.com. That's battle, the number 4, liberty.com. And, John, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Bradley?
I'm doing just fine. Oh, man, where to begin? My goodness, the crisis has been averted.
We've nothing to worry about now.
Exactly. Yes, it's all unicorns and lollipops. Unicorns distributing lollipops. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it's all good. Anyway, so of course we've had a couple of credit rating agencies say, yeah, that was decent, but not what we asked you to do. Whereas the spending cuts, we're downgrading you anyway. So how does that hope and change feel?
Well, it doesn't feel very, very good now. This has been a fantastic week in a lot of ways. I don't mean that positive, but just a lot going on. You know, from the debt crisis, all the different angles that have been taken on. This idea that somehow the stock market was panicking because there was no agreement, and then after the agreement, we really see the downturn. we start looking at the details, we see that there was very little cut as a result. We see a lack of spine, again, to make the kinds of changes that we need. And we frankly see, in my view, socialism on the ropes if we can take control of the argument now. We see White House saying there is no silver bullet, which to me means it's time for the real conservatives to step up and say, yes, there are silver bullets. Here they are. Let's do this, this, and this. So we have some opportunities here amidst this peril.
Well, if anyone's willing to pick up the ball and run with it, I played a clip from Paul Ryan on last week's show talking about the absolute nonsense of cuts to proposed spending. He said, hey, let's pass a bill today saying we're going to spend $5 trillion to cover the moon with yogurt, and then let's repeal the bill tomorrow and we've saved $5 trillion. I mean, that's about the sort of fiscal fantasy that we're looking at here. Cuts to proposed spending. You can propose to spend. I mean, I gave the example. The numbers are all fake anyway, so we might as well say we're going to spend $11.9 bazillion, and then only spend $3 trillion. And hey, look, we've saved the American people 99.9% off the budget.
You're right, and when you talk about spending over 10 years or some protracted period of time, it's really a waste. I mean, you can do a lot of projections down the road. You can project spending and run your spreadsheets and look at costs of Social Security years down the line. But in terms of spending, we know that each Congress makes its own decisions each year. So we can come up with whatever type of solution we want. If the next Congress doesn't like it, it's going to undo it. And that could work in either direction. So the only real deal that we needed today or this week was to say, we're going to cut spending X right now. And here's what we're going to do with the debt limit, the debt ceiling right now. That's the only thing that really mattered. And this whole 10-year boondoggle is nothing but smoke and mirrors. It means very little.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole thing is the credit rating agencies were telling us, hey, we need to see cuts of at least $4 trillion, which again is not even beginning to make the kind of cuts necessary. If you're talking $4 trillion over 10 years, that's $400 billion a year. What, how is that possibly going to make a dent in what we're dealing with right now? So, and even the Ryan budget, like I said before, it's a first aid kit basically. There's a tube of antibiotic and a tourniquet just so we can bind up the wound and stop the bleeding so we can get the patient back to the field hospital. That's basically it. So I mean,
Bradley, I feel guilty now.
Well, we need to look at deep cuts back to 2006 levels. I mean, there weren't people dying in the streets then, and the federal government was spending about $1.5 trillion less than they are right now.
That's right. Now I'm feeling guilty, honestly, criticizing the Ryan budget because the deal we got is so far from that. I mean, that would have at least been a step in the right direction. And I think right now to even say we got some movement in the right direction is debatable at best.
Right, exactly. Well, and it's like I said with the Ryan budget too. It's rough battlefield triage, but when nobody else is even offering a Band-Aid, it's the best thing going. So.
But there was a Band-Aid offered, and a lot of people forget about this, or something a little bit better than that perhaps, and that was that debt commission. Now, I wasn't in love with all of the recommendations that it made, the so-called bipartisan commission that Obama appointed. But, he empowered these folks to come out and do the study. They came out with concrete recommendations, the kinds of things that your typical politician doesn't want to say or be quoted. And as a package, there was a lot there to work with. And then it was blown off, and now we're going to have another commission. And my question is, if that first commission did its job, then why couldn't this Congress simply make decisions based on the first commission's work and go from there? Why do we need yet another commission to come back and do this whole thing all over again? And that just shows that we're, the proverbial kick the can down the road metaphor is just so correct. We Congress just does not want to deal with this in a serious manner.
Well, exactly, and and the whole thing with the commissions too. I mean, I've said before on this show, was it a blue ribbon commission? What's the blue ribbon? Is that pancreatic cancer or something? But I mean, honestly, we're saying, okay, we're going to have this commission to say these are the things we should do, and it'll be yet another commission that is completely ignored by, by everyone that matters, and we're, like you said, kick the can down the road, but we're steadily running out of road, and as a matter of fact, the can is looking kind of shredded right now, too. So
I haven't seen the road in a while. I think it's I'm off the road, and it's somewhere behind me.
Yeah, we're in the
I took some time to review that Bipartisan Debt Commission list of recommendations. There's some interesting things on there. A cap of 2012 spending at 2010 levels. That's progress. You could see that there was capping the total federal health spending at the rate of economic growth plus 1%. You might say why is that still economic growth plus 1%? Well, it was going up a lot faster than that. Taxing capping taxes at 21% of GDP. I did have raising the gas tax. I wasn't sure about that one. I didn't like its Social Security fix in that it wanted to effectively raise the income limit for paying tax and then turn around and cut benefits to those who have higher incomes, the so-called means testing approach. I don't like that, but there was a lot here to work with. If you want to have some substance, these guys put something on the table, and why don't we have a mature enough Congress and Senate to sit down and say, you know what, and in fact, Obama as well, he's the one who appointed this committee. Why not sit down and say, look, we've got ideas on here. Let's just work with what we have. Let's make a decision and move on.
Well, exactly. And how can you ignore recommendations coming from, former Senator Alan Simpson, who kind of ticked off the feminist wing when he was talking about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid being like a cow with 300 million teeth, I mean, how could you ignore recommendations from a guy who's going to put things in such plain language? Because that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. And again, I wasn't pleased with the whole bit that came out. I've gotten to know Erskine Bowles a little bit in terms of being around the Carolinas, but what they put on the table was at least had some teeth in it. It gave you something to work with. They were at least willing to broach the conversation, and that's something, this whole issue of entitlements, we don't even talk about it. We just keep moving it down. We talk about defense spending, and, we talk about this program or that program, and, once this whole thing was signed, we got mixed signals from the White House. We got we've averted a crisis, and then, of course, that transferred into, well, we've averted a greater crisis. That's kind of like the unemployment debate. Well, we didn't really lower unemployment, but it would have been worse. We're now seeing the market go down 500 or 1,000 points or whatever during this week, but it would have been maybe twice as much. We see these kinds of arguments come out, but right afterwards we heard this whole notion of the stimulus again. The word stimulus was not used. We talked about putting America back to work and building roads and or paving roads, building bridges, all this talk. This is the same talk we heard before when we heard about the stimulus. We already spent $800 billion on this before, and it wasn't too long ago that Obama joked that some of these shovel-ready projects weren't as shovel-ready as he thought. Yet that's the same old Keynesian solution again. Paul Krugman was saying we just need to spend more money.
Yeah. No, it was the $862 billion, and we didn't even get a lousy T-shirt. We got a punchline, and a big half black middle finger stuck in our face. But, but I think the whole thing with the shovel-ready jobs and the infrastructure spending, with all the roads that we've built and paved over the last 20 years, and the couple of $1 trillion that we've spent on all of those projects, you would think that we wouldn't be running out of road to kick this can down, but we are. So.
Yeah, and you can pave roads out the wazoo if you want to. I always, in my view, we should just have a gas tax that pays for the roads and be done with it. Nothing in, nothing out, and let that take care of it. But that tends to be the easy prey. We can put people back to